Hello, everybody. Hello to all my friends around the world, businessmen and businesswomen, expatriates, nomad professionals. Today we're going to talk about Singapore. We're going to talk about Singapore from the lens or from the eyes of an ACCA member. My name is Dean. I'm an ACCA member, and I believe that in this day and age, in this current times, everybody should obtain a professional certification. Not necessarily in finance, but we're talking about finance here. And why should you get a professional qualification or certification like the ACCA? Well, first of all, you'll gain a lot of knowledge to be able to upgrade yourself to then aspire to have a high level position with a high level salary, which you will then be able to squirrel away and save that salary, not just survive. And then you can then apply what you've learned from the program, from the ACCA program, to manage your own funds, right? And one tool I use for managing my funds is a financial platform like Bloomberg called Koyfin. So you can find the link in the description. I invite you to check it out. Let's come back to Singapore. Singapore is one of the richest countries in the world. However, it produces absolutely nothing. It has zero exports. Well, I didn't check, but it's basically a services country, okay? There's no factories there. Maybe there is a small one, but the GDP is not from factories, okay? Not from exports. It's all about services. Now, Singapore is a city-state, basically. It's just a city located in the south of Malaysia, and it's in the Strait of Malacca. And the country has a multicultural population, okay? 20% of its 5.5 million inhabitants are non-residents, okay? They're not originally from Singapore. The official languages are English, but there's also Malay and Mandarin. But usually people use English. Now, it's a democracy with multiple parties and free elections, and it's been governed by the People's Action Party, PAP, since its independence. Now, this party's control over the country is actually quite substantial. Now, the country has mesmerized the entire world with its economic transformation. It grew from a GDP of about $900 million to about $500 billion from 1965 to today. The GDP per capita is $83,000 right, per person. That's crazy. That's insane. That's one of the highest in the world. One of the main contributors to this remarkable achievement, it's the financial sector, okay? This is what we're all about. The financial sector of Singapore represents about 13.5% of the country's GDP. And to be honest, I thought it was a bit higher than that, but I guess the rest is different kinds of services like consulting and general business, and etc. So Singapore has a very high activity in all different kind of financial sector activities. At the end of 2023, there was about $3.4 trillion in assets under management in Singapore. That's huge. That's enormous. Also, you have a whole big insurance industry there, and the premiums for the net premiums generated in Singapore was about $2.1 billion. So very big as well. Now, how did this happen really? We probably already know the story. We're not going to go into the detail of the history of Singapore, but we're just going to basically think about the financial services sector here as a potential ACCA member watching. If you're either outside of Singapore right now, but you're thinking of going to Singapore to work, or you are living in Singapore at the moment and you're considering doing the ACCA program. Well, for both, yes, you should do the ACCA program because it's definitely going to work in Singapore, and it's not only going to work, but you will actually thrive in Singapore. This is what you should do and get this high-level career. And we're going to look at the jobs after, and you're going to be surprised by the wages. If you're in Singapore, absolutely do the ACCA. What are you waiting for? You're late to the party. If you're not in Singapore at the moment, well, I would warn you that it's the ACCA is not the issue here. It's going to Singapore. It's how you're going to move to Singapore. How are you going to get your residence and your visa sorted, your paperwork, because Singapore is invitation only, okay? It's not easy at all to get into Singapore. You really have to have a very solid application, or you need a lot of funds already, okay? So, one way I tried to look at it, and it was while I was working in my career in finance, that I heard this from a previous boss of mine, where he was making a parallel between Singapore, Hong Kong, and Europe. And he told me this, and it stuck with me. He said, and this was a very high-level guy in a fund, he told me, because I was asking, we had offices in Hong Kong, and I was asking why we don't have offices in Singapore, because our company tried to have a presence in Asia. Why did we go to Hong Kong and not Singapore? And his answer was this. He said, well, think of it like this, Dean. Hong Kong is a place where you have active funds, while Singapore is a place where you have passive funds. And what did he really mean by that? Well, we were a company, okay? We were a corporation. And so he said, as a corporation, if we're trying to do business and more business, or do business in general in Asia, well, Hong Kong is the place, right? This may have changed since. This was a couple of years ago, but his idea was that, okay, if you have company money, it's better to go to Hong Kong, right? This is more of the hub for corporate money. However, in Singapore, you have wealthy people money, okay, instead of corporation money. Can you see the difference between the two, right? It makes total sense, actually. And he was drawing a parallel between London or the UK and Switzerland or Geneva. So basically the difference between London as a financial center and Geneva as a financial center. London is where you have the active money. The companies are going to list on the London Stock Exchange. While in Geneva, you have wealthy people money, passive money, right? Completely different approaches. And this is kind of the dynamic we have here in Singapore and Hong Kong when we look at the Asian region in general. Another point I would like to make is I'm recording this video in 2024, and if you remember in 2023, what happened in Switzerland, right? If we look at this in terms of Switzerland being the older and this pristine image of the place where you store your funds in a safe manner. That's where you go for safety, right? For bank secrecy and safety. In 2023, one of the biggest bank, if not the biggest Swiss bank, Credit Suisse, absolutely collapsed. It collapsed. It went bankrupt. Well, it didn't go bankrupt, but before it went bankrupt at the last minute, the government stepped in and forced the bank across the street, UBS, to buy Credit Suisse for nothing, right? To avoid a total country collapse. So, is that the place where it's supposed to be the safest to store your money, Geneva? Because after the whole Credit Suisse debacle, I mean, it's not looking good for Switzerland, and I don't think long term this is really gonna stain their image, right? Their marketing has all crumbled to the ground now, because obviously Credit Suisse was not safe at all. Now it's part of UBS, and they kind of, clean up the mess, but it's still not good. So I think this is very positive for the years to come for Singapore. Singapore is definitely gonna, collect the benefits of Switzerland losing its luster, and Singapore is just going to become stronger on that. Now, another thing I'd like to point out is that if you are thinking right now, I want you to imagine right now, let's say you suddenly are the owner of assets worth $100 million. Okay, you suddenly have 100 million US dollars. Now this is a big problem, right? Don't be so happy so quick. You have a huge problem on your hand, because you now, and this is rich people problem, guys, right? Now you have to scramble around to find where to store that money, where to put that money, which bank do you go to? Well, you could go to an American bank, right? That would be probably what I would think about. Maybe a good bank like JP Morgan, right? If you've seen the tower they're building in New York of the new JP Morgan building, I mean, this bank is strong. So that I would think about that probably. But also like, okay, where else can I go? Well, I guess it's gonna be Singapore, guys. I'm just gonna open a bank account in Singapore, right? They're seen as the safest banks in the world. So this is a strong message about what's happening in Singapore. So Singapore is this huge wealth management hub. Wealth is going to Singapore. This is really translated. If you look at the real estate prices in Singapore, they've gone through the roof. It's absolutely insane what an apartment or a villa costs in Singapore. It's crazy. Now, of course, it's a tiny city, really. It's a very small state geography in terms of geography. So, of course, real estate prices are high. But if you add on top of that, you have so many wealthy people trying to move to Singapore to store their money in a Singapore bank, and therefore probably get a residence permit as well and apply, and then they will have to own real estate in Singapore, so they're pushing up the real estate prices. So it's an extremely fertile ground for ACCA members. And if I go to the careers portal, the ACCA careers portal on the ACCA website, so the ACCA has a separate website where the network can post job offers for ACCA members. So it's not LinkedIn or Indeed, it's a separate website just for ACCA members. Now, the number of ACCA jobs listed on this website is crazy, right? Compared to what you see for other countries. Usually, you usually see maybe, for a smaller country, you'll see about 20 jobs. And then for developed countries, you'll see about 100, 200 jobs. For Singapore, there are 771 ACCA jobs right now at the time of recording this video. So pretty significant. It's very, very significant. And Singapore, the ACCA has been present in Singapore for a long time. And every time I have been in contact with people working inside the infrastructure of ACCA directly for the body of ACCA directly, and some of them were actually located in Singapore. So ACCA has real offices in Singapore, and they're probably of significant size. All right, now there was one thing I'd like to mention is that if we look at these 771 jobs in Singapore, what are the job positions listed? Okay, what are the titles of those jobs? What are the roles? Well, you have a lot of things, okay? A lot of things. We have accountant, accounts assistant, assistant accountant, audit, business analyst, chief accountant, compliance and risk, credit control, finance business partner, finance director, finance manager, CFO, right? CFO is the number 2 of the company after the CEO. So CFO stands for Chief Financial Officer, financial controller, financial planning and analysis, or FP&A, forensic accountant, fund accountant. There's a lot of funds based in Singapore, hedge funds, pension funds, you name it. Group accountant, head of finance, internal audit, management accountant, NED or trustee. Now this is very interesting. NED, guys, NED stands for non-executive director. And I'm really interested by this because this is a way for you to jump all the promotions and go straight to the board of directors. Okay, if you land a job as an NED, a non-executive director, you will be hired to stand at the board of directors to represent minority shareholders. This is a governance job, basically. And the ACCA is very big on governance. There's a whole exam just on governance and the structure of a board of directors and different rules in different jurisdictions. Fascinating. And NED, so basically here there are 7 NED jobs. I strongly recommend you look into that rabbit hole because NED is a way to go straight to the board of directors. Okay, fascinating. Now there is one job I wanted to discuss. This job is posted by Randstad Singapore. Okay, it's a managing director position in private equity and private credit. So they're looking for an ACCA member, okay, and the job role will be a managing director, an MD. Now, if you don't know anything about finance, the hierarchy is very structured, very standardized. You come in as a as an associate, or maybe that's the second level. I forgot the first level. No, the first level is analyst. Okay, you start as an analyst, then you move as an associate, then you move as a VP, a vice president, and then you move as a managing director, basically the director of a division. Now, they put the salary here. Okay, are you ready? The salary for the managing director position of Randstad in Singapore, and this is just the initial, right? They're ready to negotiate, I guess, but they're looking for somebody to pay them $500,000 Singapore dollars per annum, per year, plus performance bonus. $500,000. And this is just listed as if it was just some sort of LinkedIn post, right? These jobs are not like, usually these jobs are like behind closed doors. They don't just advertise them or post it as a standard box standard job offer like this, but they do here. $500,000 managing director, Randstad Singapore, plus bonus. Think about it, guys. Now, obviously, not everybody can apply for this. You'll have to have a lot of experience. The ACCA will help, but this is not all, right? You can't come in as a junior and apply for this position. That won't work. But if you have a lot of experience and you do your ACCA exams or you have a similar qualification, you could land that job. Okay. And I want this to serve as a bit of a motivation, or if you really don't know what is the ACCA or why should you do it, or you're in Singapore and you've heard about the ACCA and you're start to search about this, guys, I'm telling you, absolutely do it. Singapore is the city where it's mandatory to have the ACCA qualification. Okay. All right, guys, I've rambled far too much. I thank you for your time, and I will see you in the next video. Thank you.